episode of MJ's Progress Not Perfection. Today's guest is Nicole. I met Nicole fresh into rehab because she was the director of our treatment center at the time. Now she's doing other things that's still health related, and we'll get into that. But this is my first time really hearing her story because I was fresh in sobriety. She was a director. It's not really something that you do is ask somebody their story when you're just like fragile. You're still like afraid to talk. But we had a lot of fun talking for this hour, so I hope you enjoy.
Time to see.
Yeah, how long has it been?
Probably almost exactly a little over 3 years when I left. Because I didn't see you when I came back for my 1 year. I don't think I did.
Where did you come back and take your cake at?
Jocelyn.
Alumni?
No, I wasn't there for that. I was planning on it, and then I had a panic attack and left early.
Really?
Yeah, because when I came back, I was like, I stayed at Jace's apartment for a little bit, and then I was staying with my buddy Kevin, who I met in the program from Jersey, and I was staying with him. And then I was bouncing around, and then I was waiting for Jace to get done work, and I was just sitting in a parking lot in the rental car, and I'm like, I feel like I'm doing old behaviors of just sitting around all day. And I started freaking out, and I changed my flight and I left. So, it just had one of those things I just got to get out of here. I came here, I got my first cake at Jocelyn on Thursday night, and
Nice.
Joe Fig gave it to me and stuff. And then I got my AA coins and everything, when I was hanging out with Jules, because I'm still friends with Jules Muck. So I saw her and got to do that, and then I left pretty much. And then I came back, and I never really been to AA since, actually.
So 3 years ago, that's 2018.
That's when I first got sober. 2 years ago, I was back. But yeah, last time I saw you was August 2018 is when I left Muse and high sobriety and came back home.
Got it.
So,
okay.
But yeah, and I'm still clean the entire time.
Amazing.
I did drink for a little bit after I came back. Hershey wouldn't give me chips because they said I used cannabis and they wouldn't give me a chip. And I was like, yeah, but I use it responsibly. I don't even smoke it. I'm using that as a medicine. That's been part of my program the entire time. And they're like, yeah, we just don't feel like, you should get it. And I'm like, okay, fine. And then a month later, exactly on my 13-month anniversary, I bought a 6-pack of Twisted Tea and I poured the first 2 out of spite, saying, I can pour it out. And then I drank the other 4. And then I didn't drink alcoholically. I drank here and there, at pool parties or with dinner. We were going to a show. And then I woke up on Leap Day, and I was hungover. And I said, I'm not supposed to be hungover. I'm done with this. So my wife quit with me because she is a real alcoholic, and she quit with me. And we haven't had a drop of alcohol in over 18 months now. And so my recovery date, I still say, is 4/25/18 because I never, I don't. That's part of my story. I talk about it, but I never lost control when it's my date, And I didn't come, when I got there, I wasn't coming to go to AA. I was coming to learn how to use weed responsibly and stop doing pills every day.
Right.
So, here we are. Welcome to the show. I appreciate you coming on and taking the time.
Yeah.
What is your clean date?
My sobriety date is March 1st, 2013. So I just had a little over 8.5 years, 8.5 last week.
That's right. I think I saw you post about that.
Yeah.
It was something like 80 months, or I forget. You posted some kind of different thing about it. I forget.
Yeah, I think it was my 18 months that I had posted on Facebook, 7 years ago, and then I just shared it.
That's what it was.
It took me quite a while to get that time. I was in and out for about 3 years pretty heavily before I was able to get time.
When did you start?
I first started going to, when did I first start using, or when did I start going to treatment?
Let's start with using, and we'll get up to that.
Okay, I think, it's hard to say is when I was talking to a girlfriend about it the other day, and I said, I really didn't start using pills until my car accident when I was 21, which also I had a bad car accident where I broke my arm, and it happened to coincide with losing my dad. And I wasn't really equipped emotionally at 20. I guess I was 22. I wasn't equipped emotionally at 22 to deal with losing a parent, nor did I have, my brothers and sisters are a lot older. My mom's a lot older. And so, no one really, I don't think, took the time to sort of, not that they didn't want to, but, help me out as a 22-year-old kid who's losing their father and, being such a daddy's girl and being the baby. And so those two events coincided. They were weeks within each other. And that set me off with pills. And did I drink too much prior to that? Absolutely. But did I think it was, is it fun? Is it fun with problems? And then it becomes problems. So I was probably teetering on fun with problems. And the reason why I say that is because I had already acquired 2 DUIs at 22.
Oh, okay.
And then, my car accident, there was alcohol involved in my car accident. I was drinking, but I had an uncle that was, tried to coddle me a little bit and got me a very good attorney. And so when I was charged with my accident, it was as a dry and reckless. So no alcohol being involved in the accident, when clearly I was very drunk on my way home to the Valley from Santa Monica from a bar with my friends, just eating a cheeseburger Happy Meal, driving in the rain. And, obviously I had one too many. So, when did my using start? Probably 17, 18, but when did it become a real serious problem? Probably 21, 22. 22.
That's exactly when mine became a problem. Like, alcohol stopped working for me at 22 because at 21 I went so hard, and then I was like, I bored with it, and I was like, I need something new every day. And then, like, I tried hallucinogenics a lot, and then, like, I did acid for like 3 weeks straight, and I'm like, all right, I can't do this every day though. As much as I'd enjoy it, I can't do it every day to escape, because you need an entire day to recuperate.
Yeah.
So then I found pills, like, and I had done pills in before, but there was this one time that, like, it was all I needed, and I was off to the races. It was like,
and I don't think you never feel that feeling again. Like, I remember, like, making this cocktail of, like, 2 Vicodin 750s and a Silma, and for some reason, like, that cocktail for me was just like complete and sheer heaven, and I could never repeat that. And obviously, as the addiction increases, so does, the pills. The Vicodin 750 stop working, right? And then you got to move on to the oxys and the roxys and the, so you graduate.
yeah,
which I, like everyone else, did too.
Yeah, graduate with honors,
For sure. Absolutely.
And I was like that guy. I'm like, I never got to do Quaaludes. This sucks. So you know what? I'm going to mix my Xanax with my 30 and then make a line. And then it's like a Quaalude because it's a painkiller and it's, and I'm like trying to, like, I'm not a pharmacist. Like, I was my own therapist, my own pharmacist. I was my own everything. And if you ask me, I was damn good at it. I
thought I was good at it too.
I wasn't, obviously. And how long did it take you to graduate from the Vicodin to oxys?
So I maintained on Norcos for about probably 6-7 years. Right. I had to get up, get out of bed, take 3 Norcos in the morning just to get in the shower. And then I would repeat that throughout the day. And at that point, I was still, like, able to hold down a job as long as I didn't run out of pills, And I don't think I really graduated. I moved to New York, and then I moved back in 2010 back to LA, and life wasn't so good anymore. I had gone through a hard breakup, and I started mixing, I started getting into oxys. I had friends that were starting to write prescriptions, and I didn't have to go to bullshit doctors anymore, even though I found plenty of those. And then I, started mixing in meth and started mixing in other illegal behaviors. And from then on, it was, oxys, for probably 3 years until I started snorting heroin.
So I always ask, how long did it take before you knew you said to yourself, oh, I'm an addict? Like, did you ever have, like, that realization, or did it take you being into, because like I knew a month in that I was
No,
an addict.
I knew for a long time. I knew back in New York, probably 2004, 2005, when I would try to kick. I had a significant other who was very against drugs. His parents were drug addicts and he hated them. And I would try to not take them and I would be sick, and the minute you know that you're physically addicted to something, I think you're an addict. But I didn't know anybody in recovery though. Like I knew like a few people that had gone to rehab and I just thought that was so crazy. And then I knew, maybe like one or two people that were in recovery, but I had no concept of what recovery looked like. So I had no idea. I
Yeah.
just I didn't have an option. I didn't see a way out.
I didn't even know there was peer counselors. You know what I mean? Like little
Yeah.
things like that. Like it's so funny. All the things I know now, it's like, man, I kind of wish I would have been able to talk to a peer counselor, like just somebody like me where I could have related. Like you and I got along so well because you were also, in recovery. So like you could
Yeah.
understand what was going through some of our minds early on. For
Right.
those who don't know that are watching or listening to us, like Nicole and I met from when I went to rehab. Were you the director at the time? I forget what your title,
Yes.
like.
Yes. Yeah, I was just about every
Yeah, you were
title there you
everything.
could
I
have
mean, you were a
possible, but
driver.
yeah.
You were even a driver. Like I remember the first time we ever like spent time together when I was in rehab was on a Sunday, and you were covering for like everybody, and then you needed a meeting as bad as I did, and you took me to the Pacific Palisades.
Yes, that was my home group
And
at the time.
I
Yeah.
think I forget if anybody else went with us. It might have been my roommate Jacob, and it might have been us three that went, and we went to like that meeting at the Palisades.
Yeah.
And like I remember that was a huge meeting. Like I ended up going to a bunch of times with you, I believe. But
Yeah,
it was like that
definitely.
first Sunday, it was like a rainy day, and everyone was like staying in and all that shit. And you're like, oh well, I'm going to a meeting if you want to go. I'm like, hell yeah, because like I was all into
Yeah.
meetings, as you know. Like I
Yeah.
wanted to go to as many as possible. You guys actually gave me special permission, which I'll never, be able to repay you for, to break curfew every night in high sobriety to go to late night at Marina.
Nice.
Like that meeting saved my life. I met some of the most amazing speakers, that like got through to me while they were
Right.
speaking at late night, and met some amazing people in sobriety that I never would have seen at any other meeting but late night, like Marshall, like old people that only go to those
Yeah.
meetings.
Yeah.
And, it's only because you guys were allowing me to go to those meetings that I could go and meet these amazing people and actually, I'm sure I earned it. I'm sure that
For
like I was,
sure.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. I mean, listen, not everybody that walks through those doors
yeah,
wants recovery, right? So you can tell, and we can tell because we're in recovery ourselves.
yeah.
So I have the ability to distinguish who's there for court or who's there to appease their family or who actually, wants wants recovery.
And
And so when
not
you
needs
when
it.
you see, yeah, it's because there's a big difference.
Oh, I talk about it all. I didn't realize the difference until, I was very close with a girl in rehab. We went to high sobriety together, and then she kept relapsing. And actually, we're friends still right now, and she lives like 15 minutes from me with her boyfriend, Taylor. Taylor,
Yes.
yeah, she was in Virginia, and I was in
Yes.
Pennsylvania. We both went to rehab there. Well, it turns out now she lives 15 minutes from me in the mountains in PA, and she came to one of my meetings a couple weeks ago.
Fantastic.
She's got a year sober now. So
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah, but I remember the first time she relapsed, and we're sitting out back, and she's about to go back to Muse again to go back to rehab. She goes, I don't understand. I need to do this. And I can't get it. And I need to, and you're just doing it. I'm like, well, yeah, you keep saying you need to. Like, why? Like, I want to be here. Like, it's working
Right.
for me because I want this. That's why I go to 3 meetings a day. It's because I want to. Nobody's
Right.
making me. One's
Right.
required, and I'm doing three. Like, I did 250 and 90.
Yeah. Wow.
Like, like I wanted sobriety. I wanted these messages. I obviously I still do. I'm doing this podcast. You're the third
Right.
interview I've done today, and
Wow.
I have another one when we're hanging up. So, and actually the other guy was in biker gangs for 38 years in Orange County.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, and I'm about to interview his sponsor who robbed 14 banks with a hand brush. So
Sorry, my story isn't that
no,
exciting.
no, your story is your story, and that's the whole
Yeah.
point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I care so much about getting these stories out that I don't mind doing this. Like, it's so important to me to get 30 out in 30 days during recovery month, because
Right.
there's so many people, even that I'm, old friends with, that I don't talk to me anymore. I know they see my Facebook posts. I know they see that, and I want them to eventually call and be like, "Hey, how do I get out of this?"
Right.
Because we can't help everybody, but all we can do is continue to show people how we live so that they
Yeah.
want what we have. So it is important to me.
Attraction rather than promotion, right?
Exactly. Now, speaking of that, what was your first introduction to like any kind of program? You were more an NA girl, if I'm not mistaken.
No,
You were
actually AA.
AA? Okay.
Yeah. My I was bad. I was probably like 90 pounds and very, very skinny and just running with a bunch of people I shouldn't. And I don't think I started to get into legal trouble, just maybe started to get into some legal trouble. And my sister came out for my mom's 70th birthday to LA, and my whole family went to dinner. And my sister took one look at me and said, you know, what the fuck's going on here? And took my family aside and said, listen, we need to help her. We need to put her in rehab. And so my mom's 70th birthday wound up becoming my intervention. And I agreed to go to detox, and I agreed to go to treatment after. And my mom, the one and only time that my mom gave me some funds for treatment, uh, she gave a donation to Beit Shuva so I could go to Beit Shuva after detox at Tarzana, because I didn't have any insurance back then. And I went to detox. I stayed there, left early, came home, told my mom I could finish my detox on my own as long as I had some Suboxone. And I went to Beit Shuva for about a week and left, with some guy that I met in Tarzana, and that was 2010. And so I continued to do that for 3 years. And of course, each time I went into detox, which was about 5, 6 times, and each time I went to rehab, I just kept coming out, meeting worse people, doing worse things. Did 6 months in, no, did 90 days in jail on a 6-month sentence
Or
for counterfeiting money in
you can't do
in
that
Ventura
anymore?
County. No, they frown upon that. The Secret Service doesn't like that.
Son of
They
a
came to
bitch.
my mom's house enough times to tell me that. So got in trouble in LA, got in trouble in Arizona, got in trouble in San Diego, got in trouble in Ventura. Uh, so yeah, I cleaning up the wreckage was really tough. And then I went to a court date in Arizona, or I went to go be seen because they said I was violating my probation, which of course I was, because I had gotten in trouble in another county. And the DA, or the public defender, said to me, listen, I'm going to take you upstairs. You'll be heard, but they're most likely going to put you in for 60 days just for violation. And I said, I don't know that I'm going to meet you upstairs. And she was like, okay, well, I hope to see you up there, or maybe I will. And then I got on a bus and came back to LA, and it was like the middle of the night, and I met this lady in the bus station, and I had some like weird abusive boyfriend who would beat me up. And so I had broken ribs and I'm like sort of a black eye. And she told me, that I didn't have to live like that anymore. And she had 12 years sober. And she stayed with me all night until, I could get on, until it was light and I can get on a bus and go back to the valley. And at that point, I called my mom and I said I was really serious about getting sober. And she said, okay, if that's the case, then you call Claire. You see if they have a bed for you. You can stay at my house one night. You can wash your clothes, and then I'm going to drop you off there. And I did just that. And I was, thank God, serious. And I don't know if I was serious when I got there, but I don't know if I was serious or not, but whatever happened in Claire in that 6 months, the relationships that I made and getting my family back, like, made me who I am today, and so grateful.
So is the pause on your wrist, is that for all your years in addiction, or was there any
Yeah,
time? Yep, me too.
yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So my,
I had a lot of suicidal thoughts too, and at the end of my addiction, and ideations, but I never
yeah,
acted on any of them because my dog. I never wanted
yeah,
to leave my dog. Seriously, that's my dog saved me from going into a tree about 10 times, and whenever it was raining, I considered, all right, I'm gonna go for cigarettes, and on the way back, I was gonna take my car into a tree, and each time I always thought, oh shit, no one's home, the dog's home. How long until they find her? She won't go to the bathroom in the house, and that dog kept me from doing it each time.
wow,
So, and I got mine, I think, yeah, when I was in LA, I got mine, and now I have one right here too.
yeah.
So,
My, I made, Andrea, and
mhm.
I think you remember Megan. She used to be at
Yeah,
the IOP, the
yep,
blonde. So those are I have four best friends, and those are two of them. And there's another two girls and we all got sober in treatment together, and we all stayed sober.
Andrea is the one I was thinking of, the NA. She went to NA. She
Yes,
was in
yes,
NA. Okay, that's,
yes,
and because she gave out the chips
yes,
at Jocelyn on Thursdays.
correct,
So that was
correct.
probably the last time I saw her, as my, when I went there for 1 year.
Yeah,
And yeah, so because it was so important to me to go to that meeting, even though like it was the only NA meeting I went to, the rest were all AA. I loved like the atmosphere of Jocelyn.
yeah. I got sober in that meeting. Or got recovery in that meeting, to be respectful of their language. Clean, clean.
Clean. So many
Yeah,
different.
no, that was a big meeting for me my first year. But going back to this, Andrea doesn't have tattoos, but the rest of us all went and got the matching tattoos. So we all have them on the same wrist.
That's awesome.
All my girls from treatment. So
Is that your right wrist? Or I can't tell.
It's my left.
Left. Okay,
It's my
because
left.
mine's on my right. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's awesome though. And for those who don't know, whenever you see someone with a semicolon tattoo, that means like our story didn't stop. Our story could have ended,
Right.
and it did not. It continued on. So I think it's always an awesome like thing whenever I see it out in the wild. Whenever I see somebody have one, I'm like, oh, cool, we can be friends. Like I know something about you, and you know something about me, and like we have that connection. So I always find that one to be really cool. Now, so when you made those connections in Claire with them, what were you guys just going to meetings together and just like doing it together, and it was like that camaraderie that like kept you in?
Yep, it was. Well, I mean, there's really nothing you can do in Claire, and you're there for so long. You're there for 6 months, so you like go to groups, and then when you're done, you go to meetings, and we all lived together. Like we were roommates, and we, some of us shared a room, and it was just, those first 6 months, those tough months where you're just battling all these demons. I mean, I think, like, I have childhood friends, and I have childhood friends who are in recovery, and I have childhood friends who are completely normal, and I have some that are like, was just as crazy as an addict as I am, and then can now go have a glass of wine on, a few nights a week and not, start smoking meth or doing heroin again. I don't understand them. That's good for them. My best friend since kindergarten is that type of lady. I don't know how she's like that, but more power to her. But those relationships that you make, I feel like when you're the most vulnerable and you're at your worst and you're, sitting there, I'm in a treatment center, I have nothing, my family won't talk to me. I think that those relationships are like irreplaceable. Like, I'm so grateful that 8.5 years later that those girls are still my best friends, Yeah,
yeah. I mean, because when you go there with an open mind and you actually open up to people, and then you find not even like counselors, not even like sponsors, just to the other people that you're in treatment with, then all of a sudden you can start realizing that like, oh, I'm not really alone in this, and I'm not the only one who did shitty things to end up here. And then you can start feeling a lot better about yourself, because like by the time we go into treatment, we kind of hate ourselves, Like,
I sat there for 2 weeks, like so mad with my arms folded, and I wouldn't talk, and I wasn't upset with anybody else but myself, because I knew I knew, you know, what it was like to be on the other side a little bit. You know, I'd given recovery a little bit of a chance. You know, I think I had like 6 months and 28 days was like my longest stint, but I knew that my life got better. And here I was again, in these chairs again, you know, with nothing again, with, you know, not one sister or brother talking to me, and not, you know, nobody supporting me, and no real friends to lean on. And my friends that, you know, I have friends that I used to use with that we all have around the same sobriety date. And, you know, at first they didn't know if they wanted to be around me, because was it going to stick this time? Or was I going to jeopardize their recovery, you know? So I have a girlfriend who I've been best friends with since 7th grade, and she has about 5 more months than I do. She's turning 9 on October 10th, and she wouldn't talk to me for the first month I was in treatment. And she was just trying to protect herself.
Yeah.
You know, and I totally understood that. And to be honest, it took her mom probably almost a year to be like, okay, these two can be together again, and not be worried that her kid was going to relapse again, you know? So.
Yeah. Did you grow up in California?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I was born in New York, grew up in California, back to New York, back to California, with some other cities sprinkled in there as well.
Okay, yeah, I knew that New York was part of your story, and okay. You're a Yankee. Yeah, you had like a Yankees something on your car. Yeah. So
I'm
like
a Yankee fan.
Yeah, so like that's why I remember like New York was part of your story at some point. So and who am I to ask, like, you know, the director of the treatment center more information on you as I'm like, you know, sweating it out for 30 days. You know.
Yeah.
So because like I was broken as anybody else is when they go in there, you know, and I just didn't know what I was lost like a deer in headlights, because like that was my first time in treatment. And, you know, so far only, luckily, but it's only because like I was excited to just get out, and like I think I joined the first group right away. Like I got off the plane, I checked in, and I was smoking a cigarette, and they were doing a group outside, and I was like, I'm just gonna sit in, and then like I never missed a group, because it got me out of my head to just like sit there and talk, and like, oh cool, that sounds really like me, and like, oh, his story is like mine too. He used to drive far to get high like I was doing. Okay, we can be friends. And then there was people I met that I didn't like, and I wanted to make them cry or make them crazy. And, you know, that's just angst new in sobriety, I think, because, like, you don't know who you are anymore, and you're just, like, being broken down every day. When did you really get into the program, though, and, like, get into the work?
So I started the work almost immediately. I would say probably like maybe 2 weeks into Claire, I had a friend say, a friend that was in there with me, who'd been there with me before, said, you know, I know this really great woman. We're very close friends. So I would never ask her to sponsor me, but I think she would be really great for you. And so I said, okay, well, I'll call her. And I called my first sponsor, Tanya, and she came and she picked me up. She picked me up every Sunday night. She read the book to me, word for word. We discussed everything. We, you know, when the book had a call to action, we started the 4th step. I sat in my 4th step for a little bit because she was like 8 months pregnant, and then she gave birth, and then I couldn't see her for a few weeks because the baby was so tiny. So I sat in that 4th step for quite some time. Yeah, like it was done, but I was just like ready to read. I was ready to get through 5, you know, like I was so anxious. And I was with her for about 2 years. And then I got another sponsor, who's my wonderful Rachel. But she moved away, and then now Sue is actually my sponsor.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, you know Sue.
Do I?
She used to do a lot of groups at Muse. Sue Dinner?
Maybe it was after me. I can't remember. But then again, remember, I was early in sobriety. So, like, people that were coming through, like, I remember Katie, you know what I mean? Like, and I still talk to Katie here and there. Like,
Katie.
Yep.
Oh, Katie.
No,
Katie. Therapist.
Katie, my therapist, yeah. And, like, Allison, you know, and, you know, I remember Andrew, because Andrew was like me, where he was in recovery, and, you know, but I would talk to, I had 3 different therapists at one point, really. Like, I talked to Andrew about the exact same things I would talk to Katie and Allison about, just to hear his perspective from an addict's point of view, basically like a peer counselor, and I just had no idea that was even a thing. And now, like, I want to actually do that and become one, because I'm basically doing that now without any kind of titles, because I'm talking to people all day long in meetings about things that only I can relate to. And it's basically like, you should just get a certification in that, right? And I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that was even a thing until like last week, So it's just so funny, the things that you learn as you keep going, and you're never done learning.
No, absolutely. Yeah, no, Katie and Allison I'm still very, very good friends with both of them.
What brought you into working in rehabs?
Honestly, I fell into it. So I left Claire after 6 months. I moved into sober living. After about 3 months of living there, the owner had said to me, the woman who's the house manager isn't working out. Do you want to take over? It's free rent. And so I said, okay, because I was struggling. I was working 2 jobs, still struggling to, pay my own bills, or sober living and like the probation fees that I owed. And I took the house manager job, and then I had a girlfriend who said, I'm an assistant manager at another sober living. They're hiring. Do you want to send in your resume? And I sent in my resume and to Muse, which was called the New Start at the time, and it was just structured sober livings and IOP. And I think I started working there as a tech when I had 18 months.
That's awesome. And then when you're working in it, did that help keep you, keep your mind straight the entire time, just like seeing people walk in every day still in it?
I'll tell you what happened. I'll tell you how I knew I was in for it, like how I was going to stay. Jack, Jack, obviously. Jack and I Jack had just started as a tech. I don't know even if I was a tech supervisor yet, or if I was still the tech. We both might have been techs at the time. We had a girl come in. She was a returning client, in and out all the time. And I had to search her, and we knew she was using. And I had to search her, and I made her take her shirt and pull her bra away from her shirt and shake it out. And 60 Norcos flew out. And instead of trying to hide 2 or 3, Jack and I went to the bathroom, and I threw them, and we flushed them. And that's how I knew, so it's probably about 2 years, and I knew, I'm really going to stay sober. And, when I originally had started at a New Starter Muse, I had wanted to be a substance abuse counselor. I went to school for it and everything. I did the 9-month school, and then I went on and got an AA in it, and I, got all ready to take the test, and something happened, and I just was like, you know what? I think I'm better on the business side. Even though on the business side, you still have so much client interaction. But for me, that was a position that enabled me to be more of not a specific counselor. You have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this, but somebody who was able to sit with clients and listen and engage and maybe give some advice and hope someone listens, or maybe not.
I listened.
Try to do that. Definitely. There are people that listen, I'm grateful because I have, clients that message me, or old clients. I don't work in treatment anymore, but I have old clients that, message me. I have 6 years now. I'm coming up on 7 years now. I have 5 years. So it just makes my heart, I feel oh, maybe I had an impact, that's really the hope that you have.
You definitely did. I mean, I think it's hard to see that until we get a message. You know what I mean? Somebody reaches out and says something hey, you're helping me, and you don't even know it. And it's even with doing this, I put these out, and it's not like I'm getting thousands of views or thousands of listens, but I'm getting messages from people. They're hey man, I keep doing this, I love this. And that keeps me going to know that even if I'm helping one person to even stay sober, just listening to these, that's important to me, because it doesn't, somebody once did that for me.
Right.
somebody
Exactly.
took the time to help me. And whether they knew it or not, whether, they were, obviously they were intentionally trying to help me, it comes a long way, especially early in sobriety. That's like you said, those first 6 months, like that's an important time early in
Very,
sobriety, because
very.
that's where you're learning who you are again and learning that like drugs weren't my problem. I was the problem and drugs were the solution to my problems,
Right. And I think that the work has to continue, right? Like I didn't, finish 12 steps and all of a sudden, boom, I'm like this new human, I had to do the work a few times,
That'd be cool.
I had, right, exactly, right? So, it wasn't till probably like my second or third, 4 steps, like specifically on relationships, that I feel like I was healed, and able to find a healthy relationship. I mean, I'm going to be 45 years old next month, right? For the first time in my life, I feel like I have a pretty healthy romantic relationship. And that's, I'm old for that. I think most people have earlier on in life, but, it wasn't until I, was able to see my part in some stuff and do a lot of work and come to terms with how to be a better, partner, that I was able to find someone who understands.
Yeah, that's why the 12 steps are important, that people don't realize that they can be utilized for anything, not just alcohol, and not just like
anything.
And people, they get so caught up as admitting it's the first step. Like, well, it kind of is, but like, to me, it's what's after the unmanageability is the most important part of the first step to me. It's not like, yeah, I have a problem. I knew I had a problem a month in. I was an addict for 10 years, and I knew a month in, I was like, oh, I'm addicted to these. So yeah, I have a problem, but like the unmanageability part is where it comes in. There's people that they're normies, that where they don't drink out of control. Everyone knows what a normie is by now. They've been in the program. They could be benefited from the 12 steps, because if your life is unmanageable from anything, then that's an important thing that you can go through and feel a lot better about it and be relieved of that. And people don't realize that.
Well, I think it's important to know that time doesn't equal recovery. Like you could have 25 years of abstinence, but it doesn't mean you're in recovery, right? So recovery is doing the work. And, I see a lot of people with a lot of time that their lives are unmanageable,
They're miserable.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of miserable people with that.
And there's people that come in here that they're like, I'm 9 months sober, and I don't know why that like I hate my life more now than I did when I was drinking. I'm like,
definitely.
Well, how many meetings have you gone to? Well, this is my first one. Like, well, let's start from here. We'll keep talking, and then come tomorrow night, and then come again. And then you don't see him again for another couple of weeks, and then they come back. They're like, I'm just so miserable. I'm like, well, you've been home not drinking, not talking to anybody for 2 weeks, so like. Yeah, you're going to be lost in your head and miserable. You got to speak that out and talk that out. Like, you come to these, that's why we have 4 meetings a day. There's plenty of opportunity that you can come in here and talk to one of us, because, like, even just a meditation, come in and sit down and talk to somebody else for a little bit. Just get out of your own head and get out of the house, because until you start doing the work, it's not, and I say these things, but, you can't make people come in here.
No.
And I'm not going to. I'm not going to track you down and say, there's people that I will track down, and they're like the people that say, like, hey, will you take me through the steps? Like sponsees, and I'm like, yeah, I can do that. So when I don't see them, I'm like, hey, how's it going? But people that are just regular meeting goers, I can't track you all down and ask where you at. You got to want to be here. You got to want to come in, and I'm not going to beg it, and we won't sign court cards, because I don't want you here if you need to be here.
Yeah, no, that's great.
We got offered to, and they're like, hey, do you want to be on the list for the drug court? And we thought about it, and then we watched the documentary 13th Step, and I said, thanks, but no thanks. Like, I know that, because, like, especially we live in rural PA, in the middle of nowhere, so they don't have a lot of options for a lot of criminals. So they'll send them to AA even when they're not alcoholics, just so they can keep track of them for 90 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of people get, mandatory AA that aren't even alcoholics. So just to be on the safe side, I was just like, no, if they want to come to a meeting, they know where to find us.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need you to be here. I want you to be here, or else you're gonna sit in a corner staring at your phone the entire time, and just distracting me. Right. You know, I don't care if you're not getting anything out of it, but you're distracting me because I see you on your phone the entire time. Like, take that elsewhere. How often do you go to meetings now that you got 8.5 years?
So I wish I could tell you that I went to more meetings. I wish I could tell you that I've returned to in-person meetings. I haven't yet during the pandemic. I am in I'm back and forth between Los Angeles and Texas for a little bit. And so when my boyfriend and I were talking about moving here, we're like, how are we going to meet people? And they're like, oh, we've just got to start going to meetings, you know? So we haven't gone back to an in-person meeting on this trip, but I try to go, you know, once every few weeks. I wish I could tell you I went more. I just don't.
Yeah, well, that happened. I mean, during COVID too. I mean, you know, but you're still talking to all your best friends that are in the program, which is.
I still talk to my sponsor. I still talk to my girlfriend. I talk to at least 2 of them every day.
Yeah, and that's basically a meeting, as we know.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a meeting. This is a meeting.
Absolutely. You know, but I've just been, since the pandemic really hit, I've just been really doing everything on Zoom.
I haven't attended. How is the Zoom meetings compared to like in person? Because I never attended a Zoom AA meeting before.
You know, it's not the same.
Yeah.
It's good. So there's good parts about it, right? So you can be in your house, you can be in your couch, but also if I'm sitting on my couch on a Zoom meeting, very easy to flip on the TV and just zone out, right? And to like not pay attention. There's good parts about it. Like I don't have to drive if I want to go to like a certain meeting to meet friends. But it's not the same, you know, camaraderie that you have, you know, when you see everybody and, you know, everybody's like faces kind of make you light up. And so that part's different. I feel like there's positives and negatives to it. I haven't had the experience where, and I've seen a lot of people have it, like where they go in the Zoom meetings and there's Zoom bombers, you know, it's only happened like once or twice I've seen in a meeting. So I think it's convenient, but is it the same? Probably not, you know?
Yeah, there's something about like when you walk in and you smell coffee being brewing and, you know, everyone's outside having a cigarette that smokes and you kind of have like a pre-meeting outside. And then you have the meeting, then you think that you can actually walk up and look the speaker in the eyes and say thank you.
Yeah,
and then you have the after meeting outside where you're smoking a couple. Like you're not a smoker.
I vape.
You vape, okay, but so you get it then. So like that kind of camaraderie that you can't get on Zoom, where like even little things of like if it's a boring meeting, like I've gone to some boring meetings, and you know, in my time. And the fun part about that, you know, is when, like, I would find a friend across the room, you know, and send them a funny message to see if I can make them laugh. You know what I mean? Like, little things like that, you know, I just...
Yeah, the camaraderie.
Yeah.
Camaraderie is definitely missed.
It was, like, the fun parts of going to school. Like, you know, like, I like going to school to see my friends and have fun in school and talk and, you know, have stories. So when you do that on a computer, I feel like that a lot of that is lost, you know, with good reason.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can message separately, you know, in a Zoom, or like Andrea and I sometimes will be at the Jocelyn Park Zooms and we'll, you know, be messaging each other privately. But it's not the same to take a cake on Zoom. You know, I took 1 cake. I've taken 1 cake this year, and I took, I think, 2 last year on Zoom. But yeah. Or wait, no. I took 2021. Right. Yeah, 2021 was my only cake I took on Zoom. The year before that, we shut down right after my first cake. We shut down like March 6th or something, and I took a cake March 1st on my actual birthday. So at Pacific Palisades. So it's weird to take a cake on Zoom. It's not the same, you know. It's not the fun of like being up there with your friends and everyone's hugging, and I don't think anybody's going to be blowing on cakes anytime soon, but, you know, like, still being there.
Yeah, and even when it's not even a full cake, just to, like, you know, like at Marina at late night, we would hold a candle, or even like we were broke and nobody, you know, we'd hold a lighter up and you blew out the, you know, and let go of the wick.
Being there, you know?
Yeah. And they don't do birthdays everywhere either. Like, spoiler, like for the rest of the country, that like,
really?
they don't call them birthdays in Pennsylvania. It's just like, oh, it's your anniversary. Here's your
so crazy.
Here's your coin, and congrats.
That's so crazy.
And then you walk up and they're like, how'd you do it? And that's it. You're not like, yeah, it's so boring. They don't read how it works, and it always upset me because I love how it works. Like how it worked. Like I used to love reading it. I knew it word by word. And then I get to Pennsylvania. I'm like, oh, we read a portion of chapter 5. They're like, what? No, we did it Our Father. I'm like, ah.
That's what you get. That's what you get in rural Pennsylvania, right?
And then I start talking. They're like, could you say alcohol and not pills? I'm like, where am I?
Yeah.
Where am I? But I found that, you know, I found a lot of people that related to me, you know, and that's the whole point, is for people that, you know, you have to find ways to relate. And if you find ways to relate out, you're gonna have a bad time. You're gonna be miserable if you're not trying to relate to somebody, and whoever it is, because you could, you know, I've talked to bikers that I couldn't be any more different from, you know, whether it's our views on politics to like how we think and what we did, but you can still find ways to relate to people if you want to.
100%, and that's something I think you probably saw in the beginning of treatment, is like, you know, there'd be somebody who would come in and be like, maybe like an older person, and say, I don't relate to these fits, you know, where you're not, you know, that's why you have to look for the similarities and not the differences, right? So you look for the feelings and not the actions. Yeah.
And so how do I say this? Are there any regrets about not sticking with it in 2010 and then going back in 2013, or did you need those 3 years?
I've seen, I wouldn't say that there's regrets. I feel like that there's, you know, a few of those times where I see people who I, you know, went through that treatment stint with in 2010, or, you know, or maybe 2011, whichever one it was prior. And they'll have 10 years. And so, you know, I'll be like, oh man, I should have 10 years. I should have 11 years, you know, or whatever the timing is now. And I think that sometimes will sting a little bit, but I think that I got it exactly when I was supposed to, right? So the universe made that possible, that I walked into treatment at that time when those women were there, you know, and the bond that I created, I think, is like, I think I was meant to be there and meant to find those friendships, because those friendships have led to being probably my strongest support system, other than, you know, my boyfriend and my family.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna like kind of guess, is like, you know, because it is easy to get jealous, or not jealous, but envious. You know, it's probably the better word.
Yeah.
Like, oh, man, I could have 10 years right now.
Yeah.
But, like, I feel like whenever, like, because I had so many relapses from trying to quit on my own over the years. Like, when we met, it was our first time in actual treatment and trying to actually do it. You know, but I've been to meetings on my own and tried the meetings, and, like, it didn't work, because I related out right away and walked out. Because, like, that's not me. That guy has a different color hat to me, so we can't be the same. So, like, you know, and I walk out. And, you know, I'm like, well, I tried, you know, and I still credit, who was it? Who answered the phone for me? I called you guys
Justin.
at 8. Thank you. I called you guys at 8 o'clock on a Saturday night, my time, so 5 p.m. on a Saturday. And it was only because I don't know if you even know any of this, but I saw High Sobriety on Legend of 420 documentary on 420. Yeah. And so, like, the next day I was like in a McDonald's parking lot for like hours waiting to meet my dude. And then I end up getting beat, and I'm having like to buy him from somebody else who cost me more. I'm driving back with 1. I did 2 right away, and I'm driving back with 1. I'm like hating myself. I'm like, fuck it, I'll Google the number. And 8 o'clock he answered, and he talked to me for like 2 hours. And I can really, really, really assuredly say if he didn't answer the phone, I wouldn't have called back again.
Yeah.
You know, because you know how it is. Like, well, I tried. I called, and they didn't answer.
Yeah.
And you know, I hope he's
That's
doing
the
good.
universe.
I haven't seen him or heard from him in a while, but you know, all that matters is he answered that night, and I definitely don't think I would even be sitting here, or definitely have the same kind of sobriety that I got if it wasn't for that first phone call that I had with him.
Absolutely.
You know,
Universe.
and then I got out there 3 days later, on the 25th or whatever it was, 4 days later, and luckily I found people like yourself that I could relate to, like, oh, cool, East Coast, like, or somebody. I would find ways, like, try to be friends with people because, like, I didn't know anybody, and I didn't know what the hell to expect because, like, treatment can be a scary thing, especially when you're not doing it. Like, I went 3,000 miles away for treatment, you know?
Yeah. Scary.
And, yeah, and actually the only person I ended up really not liking was from my area. That was in treatment at the same time as me. He came like 2 weeks later, and he was from South Jersey, but he just like made South Jersey look bad. I'll take out his name when I edit. Zach, I think his name was, or he worked for Amazon, and he kept like leaving and coming.
Was he there a long time?
No, he kept he left. I think at one point because he was gonna like, ride his skateboard or some shit, and he like I made him cry during group a couple times. Because, well, no, one time I made him cry during group because he was saying anybody that commits suicide is weak. And I said to him, I said, oh, that means because you probably thought about doing it yourself and you couldn't go through it because you're a little bitch. And he started immediately crying. And Katie's like, we're going to have to talk about that later, JD. Because, like, I just, like, lost my fiance to suicide.
Yeah.
He, like, 2 years before that. And, like, you know, I beat myself up for it because, like, you know, I thought I was responsible. You know, like most people. Right. Well, everyone told me I was. Her family told me I was responsible. But, like, there were some people that I didn't get along with, and it is what it is. Yeah. But there's, you know, treatment, you can get out of treatment whatever you put into it, you know. Exactly. And it is worth going to when you do it the right way. There's some, you know, people that are miserable there, but they're also miserable because they're not trying to be happy.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
Happiness is a choice, and it's not a feeling. And I learned that day 3 in rehab, and I was miserable. And Jace, who said to me, like, you know, it's a choice, right? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, happiness is a choice. You can wake up and choose to be happy. That's what I do. I wake up and I choose to be happy. And I was like, holy sh! I'd never even thought of it that way. And he's going to be doing the show on Monday with me. And
he is? How is he?
He's doing really good. He's even got his teeth fixed. He's all like happy, and you know, he wants to talk. And you know, he has a very supportive girlfriend, and they do a lot of like fun extreme sports together. And you know,
tell him I said hi.
Yeah, he's doing really good, and I'm so excited to talk with him because even though he relapsed a bunch of times after we met, he, you know, was so instrumental for me early on. To, you know, even though he was younger than me, but like his experiences gave me so much strength. And
he had really good energy.
His
and
positivity.
When he was around and doing well, like that affected the whole group. It affects the whole milieu, you know. So, you know, he has really good energy. I'm glad he's doing well. I'm really proud of him.
Yeah, he is. I can't wait to like have his story out there too because talk about someone who's been through it. And you know, but every day we played basketball together and we talked. We just like shot hoops and played and we just like had conversations. And then we got into sober living and we went to meetings together. And you kind of like, you know, you and your girls, like Jace was that for me. And I'm like, hey, we're going to go to this one tonight. You want to go to 26 and Broad? You want to go to this one? And like, I'll Uber. And, you know, and we would go Uber there together and we'd walk around, we'd meet people, and we would actually sit and like be in the meetings. And I remember he was going through a really tough time, and I was like 3 months in, and I was getting ready to leave. And, you know, I think he finally got a Vivitrol shot, and I felt a lot better. But, you know, it was tough for me to see somebody who helped me so much to go revert back, you know, and start struggling again. But it made me want to do this. It made me want to actually, you know, be somebody positive in the community to help others like he helped me and give it back, because it is one of those things that when you're an addict, it's a lifelong thing. And, you know, there's a lot of people that are like, oh yeah, I was an addict, but now I don't touch the stuff and I'm clean. Like you said, and they're just like normal now. I'm like, I don't get it. Like, I have to be part of the community, or else like I lose myself. Like, I have to be talking about things and make people feel better, and I think it's so important. I'm glad we got an hour just to catch up.
Yeah.
And, it's been so long. And what are you doing now?
I still work in healthcare. My old boss from Muse that used to own Muse before it was sold, bought a few companies out, healthcare companies, hospitals out in Austin, and so I work for them.
That's awesome. Yeah, Austin is up and coming.
Healthcare. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's still healthcare, and it's a similar business to treatment, but very different. But so it's very cool to like learn new things and expand my horizon.
Yeah, and it's such like there's a lot going on right now in that city.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
Like I can see,
can you see?
Yeah. Yep, and they're working on it too. It looks like they're even they're working on the buildings. And for me, I'm into comedy, and I know comedy is killing it right now down there. Like, a comedian that I had to actually do a 9-step. I had to make amends to when on my 9-month sober anniversary. I saw him at the comedy club in PA, and I had to make an amends from when I was in addiction. Well, he was never in addiction, but I took him on a ride that I shouldn't have taken him on, kind of thing.
Right.
But I made amends, and at the end I said, and yeah, you can use that story on stage. Right now he's in Austin. He up and moved after like when that boom happened down there with all the LA comics. He said fuck PA, and he moved on down to Austin to try to make it as a comedian. So I know a lot of people that are down there.
A lot of people are moving. I don't think the Texans are super happy about it. I had an Uber driver the other day who was like, don't tell anybody you're from California. And I was like, okay. But we'll see.
Yeah, it happens. It is what it is. Yeah. Either way, it's awesome to talk to you. Awesome to see you, especially 8.5 years. That's incredible. So I'll try to remember from March 1st. And actually, you're a day after now my alcohol-free day, because
I had easy to remember.
The best sober birthday ever, which is Leap Day, 2/29. So I only get a cake every 4 years.
So I have a friend who her sober birthday is February 26th. So some days, we're 1 day apart or 2 days apart, and some days we're like, 4 or 5 days apart, whatever it is. So I'm always like, oh, it's a leap year every few years. So we laugh about it.
That's why I was like, okay, well, I already have a 1-year chip for my real 1 year. So now next goal is have to go 4 years and say it's a 1-year chip. But I'll let you go, Nicole. I know you got other stuff going on. I appreciate you spending time. Thank you so much.
Talk soon.
All right, have a good day. Bye-bye.